So occasionally I'll browse some cybersecurity subreddits and I'll see the same question asked over and over, which is, how do I get into hacking? How do I start hacking? Or I'll see people in the TryHackMe and the HackTheBox community still using the attack box or the pwn box, which is the web-based virtual machine that you can spin up to do the lessons or the CTFs on. So before you sign up for TryHackMe or for HackTheBox, I think the very first thing that you want to do is set up your own virtual machine and your own virtual hacking environment. You know, to put it simply, it's basically just a bunch of virtual computers running on your main computer that are on their own separate network that can communicate with each other, and we can practice our hacking tools and techniques on, as well as connect to the TryHackMe or the HackTheBox networks. You know, this way you have your own hack box that doesn't change when you try a new challenge or a different CTF. You can save your scripts and your tools to it, and this way you get more hands-on experience with Linux and virtual machines. So just to give a quick breakdown of how this video is going to work, I'll put timestamps in the description and on the video of the different steps we're going to take to set up this environment. First thing we're going to do is install a hypervisor. In this case, we're going to use VirtualBox. And all a hypervisor is it's the software that allows us to create and run virtual machines on our host. Next, I'm going to show you how to create a Kali Linux virtual machine. Kali Linux is just a Linux distribution that is geared towards hacking. It already has a bunch of tools pre-installed on it, and is just a great distribution for starting out hacking, for learning Linux, as well as doing capture the flags. After that, I'll quickly show you how to access the TryHackMe network over the VPN, so you can use your Kali Linux box to do the challenges and capture the flags. And then I'll show you how to do the same thing in HackTheBox Academy. And then lastly, we'll be spinning up a second virtual machine called Metasploitable 2. This is a virtual machine created by Rapid7. And basically this is an intentionally vulnerable Linux virtual machine that is great for testing out different hacking techniques, running different tools against, and just a great way to get started hacking on your own network. And then as an added bonus, I'll show you how to do your first ever hack on the Metasploitable machine from your Kali Linux machine that we're going to set up in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is download VirtualBox. And this is the hypervisor software. I'm running a Windows 10 machine, so I'm going to be downloading the Windows 10 host. And you can perform the installation as is. Once that's done, we can go ahead and finish, and it should boot up. So once VirtualBox is downloaded and installed, we can go ahead and start installing our Kali Linux virtual machine. You're just going to want to go to kali.org, and I'll make sure to leave all of these links in the description of the video, and click download, virtual machines, and we're going to go with VirtualBox 64-bit setup. Go ahead and download this wherever you'd like. I'd recommend creating a folder for your virtual machines and their downloads. Once that downloads, it will be archived as a 7-zip, so we just have to extract that. And then once that's done, we can go into the folder, double click the .vbox file, or the blue icon. Hey, post-recording Ryan here. Make sure you only have one instance of VirtualBox running at a time. Double clicking that blue icon will open up another instance of VirtualBox. So if you had one open previously, make sure you close them out so you only have one running at a time. Otherwise, you won't be able to edit the settings of the virtual machine. All right, back to the video. And that will open up VirtualBox, and we will have our virtual machine ready to go. Now, before you boot it up, there are some things you're going to want to change in the settings. Just right-click on the Kali Linux machine, click Settings. Feel free to name it whatever you want. And then we're going to go to the System tab, and this is where you can allocate how much virtual memory you want your machine to have. The default here is 2 gigs of memory. I would recommend going either 4 or 8 gigabytes of memory. And then moving on to the CPU, the default is 2 processors. My CPU has 8 processors, so I up mine to 4. And then the last and most important thing we're going to change here is the network adapter. We're going to change this from NAT to NAT network. And then we're going to create our own NAT network after we hit OK here. We just go to Tools, NAT Networks, and then you can right click or click Create. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to call it Demo, and you can give it whatever subnet you want. This is basically the subnet that the virtual network is going to be running on. If you're not that well versed in networking, feel free to leave it the default. Basically what this NAT network allows us to do is have a bunch of virtual machines on the same virtual network on this same IP subnet so that they can communicate with each other. And then we can run our hacks against different virtual machines that we spin up at the same time. Then we can go back into our virtual machine and select the NAT network that we just created. And then we can go ahead and boot it up. Once it's booted up, we're going to log in with the default Kali credentials. So username and password are both Kali. And then the first thing we're going to want to do after making sure that we are on that NAT network with a quick ifconfig, we can see that we've got the IP address assigned to us 10.0.2.4. So it's on that NAT network subnet that we just created. And we're going to want to go ahead and make sure we can reach out to the internet. So by pinging 8.8.8.8, that's going to reach out to a Google DNS server, basically confirming that we have internet access. The next thing we're going to want to do is change our password because Kali is not secure. So all you have to do is type passwd, type in the current password of Kali, change your password, type it in again, and you're all set. Now to quickly show you how to connect to the TryHackMe network over VPN, you can either log into TryHackMe on your virtual machine and download the file directly there, or download it on your host machine and transfer it over. Just to keep it simple, I've signed into TryHackMe on the Kali virtual machine. You can go to your profile icon, go to Access, choose a VPN server that makes sense for you, depending on where you are. Go ahead and download that configuration file. Once that configuration file downloads, it'll be in your user's downloads folder. So we can go back to our terminal, CD into downloads, and you'll see that OpenVPN file, configuration file. We just do a sudo OpenVPN and then the name of the file. It'll be your TryHackMe username. Hit enter. Type in your password that we just changed. And then once we see initialization sequence completed, we know we've connected to the VPN network. We can go ahead and do another ifconfig, and then you can see our TryHackMe IP address. Now when you spawn a machine or do a CTF on TryHackMe, you can use your Kali virtual machine instead of the attack box, which will make your life so much easier in the long run. To do the same thing in HackTheBox Academy, you go to your user profile, go to VPN settings, select a VPN server that makes sense for you, and then download the VPN configuration file. And then from there, it's the same thing as the TryHackMe steps. All right, back on our Windows host, the next thing we're going to do is download the Metasploitable virtual machine and run it in VirtualBox. So we're going to want to go to docs.rapid7.com/metasploit/metasploitable2. You can grab them from either Rapid7 themselves, but it requires you to create an account with Rapid7, or you can download it from sourceforge.net, which looks sketchy, but I promise you it's completely legitimate. So we go ahead and click that. Just click this green download, don't do anything funny. Just wait for the download to start shortly. It takes about 5 seconds, and then we can go ahead and save that wherever we want. Once Metasploitable downloads, it will be archived, so we have to go ahead and unzip it. Once it's unzipped, we have to create a new virtual machine in VirtualBox, and we'll be using the files that we just unzipped to create the virtual machine. So here you can give it a name of whatever you want. I'm going to call it Demosploitable. Here we're selecting the folder of where we're going to be saving the virtual machine. We're going to leave the ISO image blank and instead choose a type of Linux, and scroll down under the version tab until you find Ubuntu 64-bit. Here we can leave the suggested amount of memory and processors as the default, and we're going to want to use an existing virtual hard disk. Click this green icon here, add a hard disk, go to the Metasploitable folder that we just unzipped, and then select the VMDK file that is in that subfolder. Once you choose that, we can hit next, and then finish, and then our virtual machine has been created. We can go ahead and change up the settings, go to network, change it to that NAT network that we created earlier, and we should be good to run it. Once that boots up, we can sign in with MSFadmin as the username and password. Once we're logged in, again, we can run an ifconfig, and we can see that we're on the same subnet again as our Kali box. This time we're 10.0.2.5. And a quick tip, if you ever get stuck inside of a virtual machine and you lose your mouse, you can hit right control. That'll take you out of it. Now that we know that both of our virtual machines are on the same network, we can go ahead and start our first ever hack. Alright, now that we have both Kali and Metasploitable up and running, we know the IP addresses of both of our machines, we can go ahead and run our first attack on Metasploitable from our Kali Linux machine. So this hack was the first hack that I ever did, and it involves a vulnerable version of an FTP server running on Metasploitable. So the first thing we're going to want to do is run a scan against our Metasploitable server. We know that the IP address of the Metasploitable server is 10.0.2.5. So this command here is going to scan the top 1000 ports against 10.0.2.5 and do service enumeration on any of the open ports that it finds. So basically figuring out what service is running on the port that it finds open. Once the scan completes, we're going to see a whole bunch of ports open with a whole bunch of different services running. But the one we're interested in is port 21, which is an FTP service running VSFTPD 2.3.4. And if we do a quick lookup of that service and version number, we see that there is a backdoor vulnerability. And to exploit that vulnerability, all we have to do is make a connection to that FTP server. So we're going to be connecting to the IP address of our Metasploitable server over port 21. Once you see that 220, we're going to give it a user parameter, and then we can put anything after the user parameter as long as it ends in a smiley face. So a colon and then a right parenthesis. So I will just do Cyber Ryan, and then make sure you've got the smiley face at the end. Then we specify a password, and this could be literally anything, does not matter. We just do a pass and then whatever you want to put in. Now attempting this login with the username with a smiley face and an invalid password has actually opened up a backdoor port on port 6200. So if you look at our initial scan, you don't see an open port of 6200. But after attempting to log into the FTP service with a username with a smiley face and an invalid password, if we were to run our nmap scan again against just port 6200, we will see that it is open. So if we go ahead and run our exploit commands again, it'll open up that backdoor again on port 6200. We can just do a netcat, supply the IP address of the Metasploitable server, and then port 6200, run a whoami, and we'll see that we've got root on the Metasploitable server. That about wraps it up for this video. If you found it useful, feel free to leave a like, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. I'll see you later.